Welcome to BBC International News. First I will tell you the news title and then the details. Top news: Kataib Hezbollah, one of the Iraqi Shiite militia groups close to the Iranian government, has denied reports that the group has resumed attacks against American military positions. Breaking news: the White House blamed the Islamic Resistance of Iraq for the deadly attack on its base. Great news: the Houthi offensive in the Red Sea has caused a sharp drop in profits for the world shipping giant. Breaking news: Iran deployed 20% of its military capabilities to punish Israel. Top news: Russia is attacking with banned chemicals used in World War I. Listen to the news title so far, now listen to the details.
Top news: Kataib Hezbollah, one of the Iraqi Shiite militia groups close to the Iranian government, has denied reports that the group has resumed attacks against American military positions. The statement came after Reuters reported that 5 rockets were fired at U.S. military positions in northeastern Syria on Sunday night. There were no reports of possible damage or casualties in the attack. After this attack, a report was published by Reuters news agency, which announced the resumption of attacks by Kataib Hezbollah against American military positions. It was the first attack attributed to Iraqi militias against U.S. troops since the Iraqi militia stopped in February and came after a deadly explosion killed a member of the Iraqi Hashd al-Shabi militia at a base south of Baghdad. Rockets fired from the back of a van targeted American soldiers in the northern Iraqi city of Jamar, Reuters reported. After the rocket was fired, the van carrying the rocket launcher exploded and caught fire, Reuters reported. Local eyewitnesses said the warplanes flew over Jamar while firing the rockets. In February, Kataib Hezbollah killed 3 U.S. servicemen in a drone attack on a U.S. military base on the Jordanian border. By midnight on Friday, February 2nd, U.S. forces had struck 85 targets in Syria and Iraq. The operation was carried out in retaliation for a January 28 attack on a base in northern Jordan that killed 3 American soldiers. According to American officials, the attack was carried out against the IRGC's Quds Force and allied militia groups. U.S. President Joe Biden said the attacks will continue at a time and place of our choosing. Critics argued that the attacks should have been carried out earlier. The White House blamed the Islamic Resistance of Iraq for the deadly attack on its base. The White House has blamed Iran-backed militias for the deadly drone attack on a U.S. base in Jordan. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said U.S. intelligence agencies believed the Iraqi Islamic Resistance was responsible for Sunday's attack. U.S. President Joe Biden said a day earlier that he had decided what the U.S. response would be and added, "I hold them, Iran, responsible for this attack because of the arms supply." 3 U.S. soldiers were killed and at least 40 wounded in the attack. The Houthi offensive in the Red Sea has caused a sharp drop in profits for the world's shipping giant. Danish shipping company Maersk, the world's shipping giant, has announced that its profits fell sharply in the first quarter of this year due to Yemeni Houthi attacks in the Red Sea and changes to sea routes. The company announced that it faced a decline in annual profits due to attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea and the avoidance of traffic on this sea route. According to this news, in the first quarter of 2024, Maersk's net profit was $177 million and decreased by 13% compared to the same period of the previous year, reaching $12.4 billion, which is slightly less than the financial forecast. Analysts, however, are raising their economic activity outlook for the full year, citing rising demand and rising rates and costs as a result of disruptions in the supply chain through the Red Sea. Maersk chief executive Vincent Clark said the first quarter report was exactly what we expected about shipping conditions in the Red Sea. Mr. Clark added, "The situation in the Red Sea is unlikely to change." With Israel's attack on Gaza in full swing, Yemen's Houthis have announced that, with the support of the people of Gaza, they will not allow Israeli shipping in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden and have launched armed attacks on ships in the region. After the Houthi attacks began and based on the information gathered, these attacks did not only affect Israeli ships, and the safety of shipping in the Red Sea became an issue. After that, an international coalition led by the United States, as well as the United Kingdom and France, launched a military response to the Houthi offensive, and American and British forces targeted Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen. Military operations merchant ships that carried their cargo to Europe from the Red Sea and Suez Canal, or vice versa, changed their route west from South Africa after the invasion. Iran deployed 20% of its military capabilities to punish Israel. Only 20% of the country's military capabilities were deployed in the punitive operation carried out by the Islamic Republic of Iran against Houthi Israel on April 14. Brigadier General Amir Ali Hajizadeh, commander of the Aerospace Division of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, said this in an interview. He said that Israel has tried to deal with all the missiles and drones used in Iran's Operation True Promise with the cooperation of America, Britain, and France. But against the superpowers and their allies, Iran deployed only 20% of its military power. General Hajizadeh said, Israel has used all its military capabilities to counter Iran's operations. At the same time, the U.S. deployed its fighter jets, cruisers, and aircraft carriers in support of Israel. The important thing here is that America has said earlier that it has no intention of standing by Israel in the ongoing incident, but they have rightly sided with Israel to resist Iran's attack. An IRGC general said there were many undisclosed facts about Operation True Promise that exposed a small part of Iran's military power. Russia is attacking with banned chemicals used in World War I. The United States has accused Russia of using the banned chemical chloropicrin on the battlefield in Ukraine. This chemical was used extensively during World War I. U.S. State Department officials say the attack in Ukraine with this weapon is not an isolated incident. Russia often uses it. According to U.S. officials, the use of these weapons may violate the Chemical Weapons Convention, CWC. According to the convention, which has been ratified by 193 countries, no new chemical weapons can be acquired or development of such weapons possessed. According to the CWC, the use of chloropicrin in any war is strictly prohibited. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, the use of this chemical in oil can cause inflammation of the lungs, eyes, and skin of people. It also has the potential to cause vomiting, nausea, and diarrhea. According to the United States, Russia used chloropicrin to force Ukrainian troops to retreat from fortified positions. However, Moscow dismissed this accusation as baseless. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters that Moscow complies with its obligations under the CWC. U.S. President Joe Biden had earlier warned Russia about the use of chemical weapons in Ukraine. He warned in March 2022, weeks after the attack on Ukraine, that if Russian President Vladimir Putin authorized the use of chemical weapons, he would pay a heavy price. However, Moscow has been repeatedly accused of using chemical weapons in Ukraine. Mallory Stewart, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Arms Control, has accused Russia of using riot control chemicals. Ukrainian soldiers have also reported being subjected to chemical attacks in recent months. At the beginning of this year, a report by the news agency Reuters said that Russian forces are using grenades with CS and CN tear gas in Ukraine. At least 500 Ukrainian soldiers had to be treated after being exposed to this poisonous gas. Another soldier died of suffocation due to tear gas. The U.S. State Department has imposed sanctions on 3 Russian companies involved in the production of chemical weapons. Washington alleged that they were involved in the country's biological and chemical weapons program. Apart from this, another institution has been banned for supporting government institutions. The Organization for the Chemical Weapons, OPCW, an international organization involved in the prohibition of chemical weapons, is responsible for monitoring whether the CWC is being implemented properly. In 2017, the agency said Russia had destroyed the last of its Cold War chemical weapons stockpiles, according to the CWC. However, since 2017, there have been at least 2 allegations of chemical weapons attacks against Russia. One of these attacks was carried out on a former intelligence officer of the country. And in 2020, Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who recently died in prison, was a victim of a chemical attack. Russia is going to celebrate Victory Day on May 9th. This day is celebrated on the occasion of the victory of the Soviet Union in World War II. Before this, Russia has been making continuous progress on the battlefield in the eastern part of Ukraine. Much of the fighting in the region is taking place around the Kiev-controlled city of Chasiv Yar. Moscow wants to capture the city before Victory Day.